She thought abandoning her children would free her from struggle. But fate had other plans. A hungry little boy stole food to feed his sister, only to discover the woman he stole from was not a stranger, but their grandmother. Stay tuned for this powerful story of survival, regret, and reunion. And don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more dramatic stories. The small one-room house smelled of smoke from the firewood stove. A pot of watery soup boiled quietly, but inside it there was almost nothing, just a few leaves and salt. The woman stirred it with a weak hand, her eyes red and her cheeks hollow. Behind her, 2 children sat on the floor. The boy was 8, holding his sister close. The girl was 7, too thin for her age, clutching an old ragged doll. "Mummy, I'm hungry," the girl whispered. The woman pressed her lips together. She had no answer. For 3 days she had begged in the market, going from stall to stall. Some women gave her rotten vegetables, others chased her away with harsh words. "Lazy woman," one trader shouted, "go and work instead of disturbing us." She had worked. She had scrubbed floors in a stranger's shop, but the money barely bought 1 cup of rice. By the time she fed the children, nothing was left for tomorrow. The boy looked at his mother with worried eyes. "Mummy, don't cry," he said. She turned quickly so they would not see her tears. But her heart was tearing apart. She had once dreamed of a good life. She had once held hope. But sickness had eaten her strength, and poverty had crushed her spirit. She begged, she borrowed, she labored until her hands blistered, yet hunger never left their door. That evening, she sat outside on a wooden stool. The children slept beside each other on a thin mat, their ribs showing through their clothes. A neighbor passed by carrying a bag of food. The smell made her stomach twist. She begged softly, "Sister, please, can you spare something for the children?" The neighbor looked down at her with disdain. "You again? Every day it's the same story. You think people will feed you forever?" She walked away. The woman buried her face in her palms. Shame burned her skin hotter than the evening sun. She thought of all the times she had swallowed pride to beg, all the times she had sold her dignity for a handful of rice. And still, her children's stomachs were never full. "Is this life?" she whispered to herself. "Is this living?" Her mind grew darker each passing day. She remembered how she once laughed, how she once danced when she was younger. Those days were gone. Now, all she had was pain, and 2 small mouths that demanded more than she could give. By midnight, the children stirred. The boy coughed in his sleep. The girl whimpered for water. The woman fetched the last drops from the clay pot, poured them into a cup, and gave it to them. Then she sat alone in the corner, her eyes empty. A thought slipped into her mind, small at first, then bigger, heavier, louder. What if I leave them? What if I walk away? She shook her head violently. No, I am their mother. A mother does not leave her children, but the thought refused to die. If you keep them, they will die of hunger. If you let them go, maybe fate will be kinder. Maybe strangers will help them. Maybe you will be free. The words circled in her mind until dawn. When morning came, she watched her children wake up with tired eyes and hollow faces. They smiled at her, still innocent, still trusting. Something inside her broke. "I cannot do this anymore," she whispered. Her voice shook. "I cannot carry this burden. I will take them far, far away. I will abandon them. Then I can start my life again." She did not tell the children. She only forced a smile and told them, "Get ready. We are going for a drive." The boy held his sister's hand. The girl carried her doll. They followed their mother, not knowing that every step was leading them toward a cruel decision that would change all their lives forever. The car was gone. The dust from the wheels had long settled, but the children still stood at the side of the road, staring into the crowd as if their mother might return. She did not. The girl clutched her doll tightly, her lips trembling. "Mummy will come back," she said softly, more to herself than to her brother. The boy swallowed the lump in his throat. He knew the truth, but could not tell her. Instead, he put on a brave face. "Yes, she will come, but until then, we must stay together." The city swallowed them quickly. The noise of engines, the shouts of traders, the endless footsteps. It was nothing like their quiet street at home. People brushed past them without care, as if they were invisible. Hunger soon pushed away hope. By afternoon, their stomachs rumbled so loudly that passers-by turned to look. The boy tightened his grip on his sister's hand. "Come," he whispered. "Let's look for food." They wandered to the market square. The smell of roasted meat and fried beans filled the air. The children's mouths watered. The boy approached a woman selling oranges. "Auntie, please, just one. My sister is hungry." The woman frowned. "Go away. Do I look like I'm running a charity?" She waved a broom at him until he backed off, his cheeks burning with shame. Later, they found a food stall where leftovers had been thrown into a dirty tray. The boy hesitated, but when his sister tugged his sleeve weakly, he picked up a piece of bread and wiped off the dirt. He broke it in two and gave her the bigger half. She smiled faintly as she chewed. Night fell, and with it came cold. The shops closed one by one, leaving dark shutters and empty walkways. The boy led his sister to a veranda where cardboard boxes were piled. He cleared a space and laid the small bag under her head as a pillow. She curled up with her doll, shivering. "Are we going home tomorrow?" she whispered. "Yes," the boy said quickly, though his heart felt heavy. "Mummy will come for us." He stayed awake long after she slept, watching shadows move on the street. A stray dog sniffed nearby, and he waved it off. Men passed by, laughing loudly, their voices rough and dangerous. The boy pulled his sister closer, guarding her with his small body. The next morning was no better. Hunger returned like a cruel master. They walked from shop to shop begging. Some gave them insults, others gave nothing. Once, a kind old man dropped a coin into the boy's hand. It was enough to buy roasted groundnuts, which they shared carefully, one nut at a time. Days rolled into each other. The children grew dirtier, thinner, weaker. Their clothes tore. Their faces lost their brightness. Still, the boy refused to give up. He wiped his sister's tears, told her stories, and promised again and again that things would get better. One evening, rain began to fall. The streets flooded with rushing water. The children huddled under a broken shed, soaked and shivering. The girl coughed, her teeth chattering. The boy held her tight, his own lips blue from cold. "Don't sleep," he whispered. "If you sleep, you will not wake up. Stay with me." She nodded weakly, and together they endured the storm until morning. By now, desperation had carved itself into the boy's heart. He knew begging alone could not save them. He needed more. He needed food, real food. He needed a miracle. And unknown to him, that miracle was only a step away. The mansion was beautiful, wide and filled with light. Expensive curtains draped across tall windows. The marble floor shone like a mirror. Golden frames hung on the walls, holding pictures of places traveled, awards received, and properties owned. Yet for all its glory, the house felt empty. In the middle of the vast living room sat a woman, 55 years old, dressed in a flowing gown of silk. Her beauty still lingered in her face, though loneliness had carved lines around her eyes. She leaned back in the velvet armchair, her chin resting on her palm, her mind lost in thought. She was a billionaire, admired in business circles, feared in negotiations, respected everywhere she went. She had more than enough money to buy anything she desired: cars, clothes, houses. But she had only one child, her daughter, and that child had abandoned her. It had been 35 years since she gave birth, but the wound of losing her daughter at 20 was still fresh. She remembered the day clearly. They had argued about freedom, about choices. Her daughter's words had cut deep. "I don't want your money. I don't want your rules. Leave me alone." Then she had walked out of the mansion and never returned. For 15 long years, there had been no phone calls, no letters, no visits. The woman had searched. She had hired investigators, called relatives, even placed quiet adverts in newspapers. Nothing. Her daughter had shut every door. Now, in the quiet of her golden home, the woman whispered, "Where are you, my child? Do you even think of me?" Her voice echoed against the high ceiling, bouncing back as if mocking her loneliness. She reached for the picture frame on the table. It was a photograph of her daughter at 18, smiling shyly, her hair blowing in the wind. The woman's hands trembled as she touched the glass. "Why did you leave me? Was I such a terrible mother?" Her heart ached, but tears would not come any more. She had cried enough over the years. Now all that remained was emptiness. With a sigh, she pushed the frame away. "I cannot live on memories alone. I need to restock the house." She stood up, tall and regal, and picked up her designer handbag. She rang no bell for servants. Though she had many, she preferred some tasks alone. She slipped on her heels, locked the grand door behind her, and walked to her sleek black car. The drive to the mall was smooth. City lights reflected on the tinted windows as the car glided through traffic. At the mall, people turned their heads when she entered. Even dressed simply, her presence carried power. She walked through the aisles, selecting bread, fruit, cartons of milk, and other small necessities. She paid with a platinum card, barely glancing at the receipt. Soon, she left the bright mall and stepped into the parking lot. The afternoon sun warmed her skin as she carried her shopping bag toward the car. Her mind, however, was not on groceries. It drifted back to her daughter. If she had children now, would they even know they had a grandmother? Would they know the wealth that could have been theirs? She sighed and shook her head, clutching the bag tighter. Her heels clicked on the pavement as she walked toward the car. But suddenly, bump! A small body brushed against her side. She gasped, looking down. A boy, no more than 8, darted past her. Her bag felt lighter. She glanced quickly. One pack of bread was missing. "Hey!" she cried out, her voice sharp. "Stop, you thief!" The boy didn't look back. His legs carried him swiftly across the lot. His arms hugged the bread tight against his chest, as if it were treasure. Anger surged through her. No one stole from her. Not in her businesses, not in her home, not in her life. She marched forward, her heels clicking louder, her eyes blazing. She would not let this child escape so easily. But as she followed, weaving past cars and people, she did not yet know that this single act of theft was about to change everything she thought she had lost. She moved fast for a woman in heels. The parking lot stretched wide, hot air rising off the ground, but she did not slow down. The boy zigzagged through cars, clutching the bread to his chest like a frightened bird. She followed, angry, breath sharp, eyes fixed on him. He slipped through a side gate into a quiet lane behind the mall. There, in the shade of a low wall, a little girl sat on the ground with a ragged doll in her lap. Her face lit up when she saw him. He dropped to his knees, tore open the pack, and put the bigger piece of bread in her hands. Only then did he take a bite for himself. The woman stopped. The heat, the anger, the noise, everything fell away. She watched the girl eat quickly, crumbs on her chin, and the boy staring at her with relief, as if seeing her swallow was the only thing that mattered in the world. She had chased a thief, but what she found was hunger. Her voice came out softer than she expected. "You!" The boy jumped, eyes wide. He pulled his sister behind him, shielding her with his thin body. "Please, Ma," he blurted. "Don't call police." The woman's chest tightened. The girl peeped from behind her brother's shoulder, clutching the bread and her doll together like two treasures. The boy's knees were dirty. The girl's dress was torn at the hem. Both children's faces carried the grey look of many hungry days. The woman took a breath, then another. Her anger shrank. Something older, deeper, rose in its place. "I should be angry," she said, steadying her voice. "You took what is not yours." The boy swallowed. "I'm sorry." "Why did you steal?" He looked at his sister, not at the woman. "She was hungry." Simple words, heavy words, words that fell like stones in the woman's heart. "How long since you ate?" she asked. The girl answered in a small voice, "Yesterday, a little." The woman glanced at the bread, already half gone. She looked back at the mall, then at the empty lane. She was a billionaire who could buy 100 bakeries, yet 2 small children had stolen a loaf from her hand and shown her a truth money often hides. "What are your names?" she asked. The boy hesitated. "My name is Daniel," he said carefully. "This is my sister, Sarah." "Where are your parents?" Silence. The girl lowered her head. The boy's jaw tightened. He did not lie, but he did not answer. The woman studied their faces. Something in Daniel's eyes tugged at a memory she could not place, an old echo of someone she used to know. She brushed the thought away. "Not here. Not now." "Stand up," she said gently. They both stood, small and alert, ready to run if she shouted for help. Instead, she opened her handbag, pulled out a bottle of water, and handed it to Sarah. The little girl drank and coughed at the same time, as if her throat had forgotten what comfort felt like. The woman took a tissue and wiped the child's mouth. Her own hand shook. "I will not call the police," she said. The boy sagged with relief. "But you cannot keep stealing. It is dangerous. People are not kind." He nodded quickly. "Yes, Ma." She pointed to her car at the edge of the lot. "Come, I will buy proper food. Then we will talk." The boy looked uncertain. "We don't ride in cars," he said softly, as if the truth might offend her. "You will ride in mine," she replied. "Only to the food court inside. We will sit where everyone can see us. No tricks. Do you trust me?" He looked at his sister again. Sarah, already licking bread from her fingers, gave a tiny nod. At last, Daniel agreed. They walked back together, not holding hands, not speaking much. Inside the mall, heads turned at the woman's presence, but also at the sight of the 2 dusty children beside her. She did not care. She led them to a small restaurant and ordered rice, stew, grilled fish, fruit, and milk. When the plates arrived, she slid them forward. "Eat." Daniel waited until Sarah had a spoon in her hand. Only then did he take his first mouthful. He ate fast, then forced himself to slow down, embarrassed by his hunger. The woman watched quietly, noticing the way He cut the fish bones, small for Sarah, the way he pulled tissues one by one to keep her fingers clean. Not just a brother, no, more than that. A guard, a tiny father. When they finished, she ordered extra food packed in takeaway boxes. Then she bought 2 small bottles of soap, a comb, and simple T-shirts from a nearby store. The children stared at the gifts as if they were jewels. Outside again, she paused near the exit. The evening light gilded the parking lot. A breeze lifted the edges of her scarf. "Where do you sleep?" she asked. Daniel looked away. "Outside." "Where outside?" "Shops. Anywhere." She nodded slowly. It would be easy to hand them to an officer, to point toward a shelter, to pay a charity and drive away. Easy, clean, distant. The kind of solution wealth likes. But when she looked at Sarah's thin arms and at Daniel's tired eyes, the easy answer felt like a lie. "I have a big house," she said at last. "Many rooms. Too many. If you come with me tonight, you will eat, bathe, and sleep in a bed. No one will hurt you there." Daniel's body went still. He searched her face for danger. He had learned to read people fast, who to avoid, who to ask, who to run from. He found no sharpness in her eyes, only a strange ache he could not name. "If we come," he said slowly, "will you send us away tomorrow?" "I don't know what tomorrow brings," she answered truthfully, "but tonight you will be safe." He glanced at Sarah. The little girl's fingers tightened around her doll. "I'm tired," she whispered. The woman opened the car door. "Then come." They climbed in, small and careful. The leather seats swallowed their thin frames. As the engine purred to life, the woman felt that tug again, the odd warm ache of an old memory returning. She pressed her hand to the steering wheel, steadying herself. She did not know their story yet. She did not know where their mother was, or why Daniel's eyes felt familiar in a way that frightened her. She only knew that the road ahead led to her mansion. Bright halls, quiet rooms, a long dining table that had waited 15 years. And for the first time in a long time, the house would not be empty. "Seatbelts," she said softly. They clicked them in place. She pulled into the evening lane, carrying 2 tired children toward a door she had kept closed for too long, without knowing that by opening it, she was walking straight toward the truth she had been running from. The car turned into a long driveway lined with tall trees and bright lights. At the end stood a mansion with gates so wide it looked like a palace. Daniel's mouth fell open. Sarah pressed her doll tighter to her chest, staring at the glowing windows. "This is your house?" Daniel whispered. "Yes," the woman said quietly. "This is my house." When the gates opened and the car rolled in, the children felt like they were stepping into another world. The front doors opened automatically. The marble floors shone beneath the lights. A grand staircase curved upward, like something out of a storybook. "Wow," Sarah breathed. "It looks like a castle." The woman smiled faintly. "A castle is nothing without people in it." She led them upstairs, where servants quickly brought warm water, soap, and fresh towels. Daniel and Sarah bathed properly for the first time in weeks. Their dirty clothes were taken away and replaced with clean shirts and shorts. Sarah touched her new dress again and again, as if afraid it would vanish. That night, they ate a proper dinner at the long dining table: chicken, rice, and fruit juice. Daniel ate carefully, but Sarah giggled at the way the juice tickled her tongue. The woman watched them, her eyes softening with every bite they took. For the first time in many years, she was not dining alone. When it was time for bed, she showed them into a guest room. The beds were wide, soft, and covered in clean white sheets. Daniel lay down cautiously, half expecting someone to chase him off. Sarah buried her face in the pillow with a happy sigh. "Sleep well," the woman said, standing at the door. "Tomorrow, we have much to do." The children nodded. Daniel whispered, "Thank you, Ma." The next morning, sunlight poured into the mansion. The woman was already dressed in a smart gown when Daniel and Sarah came downstairs, washed and looking healthier. A car waited outside. "Where are we going?" Sarah asked. "To school," the woman said firmly. "Children must learn. You will not waste your lives on the streets." Daniel blinked. "School? Today?" "Yes," she said with finality. "I have already called a private school nearby. They owe me a favor." The drive to the school was quiet. Daniel and Sarah pressed their faces to the glass, watching children in neat uniforms walking in with bags on their backs. At the gate, the headmistress herself came out to greet the woman. "Madam, welcome," she said warmly. "We will take good care of them." Daniel and Sarah were given books, pencils, and small uniforms. When they stood in front of the mirror, Daniel's chest lifted with pride. He almost looked like a normal schoolboy again. Sarah twirled in her skirt, smiling brightly. At noon, the woman picked them up again. She asked about their day. Sarah chattered about the teacher, the crayons, the songs they sang. Daniel spoke less, but his eyes shone. That evening, after dinner, the woman sat in the living room with a glass of juice in her hand. The children were on the carpet nearby, drawing pictures with their new pencils. She watched them for a long time before speaking. "You remind me of someone," she said softly. Daniel looked up. "Who?" "My daughter," the woman whispered. Her voice cracked. "She was my only child. She left me when she was 20. For 15 years, I have not seen her. She refuses to call, refuses to write, refuses to come home." Sarah frowned. "Why?" The woman shook her head. "I don't know. Maybe I was too strict. Maybe I loved her too much, and she thought it was a cage. I don't know. But I miss her every day." Her eyes grew moist. "I have all the money in the world, but no family. Money fills the house with things, but not with laughter. When you children came into my life yesterday, it was as if the house breathed again." Daniel's chest tightened. He looked at Sarah, who bent her head quickly over her drawing. Neither spoke. Their secret lay heavy in their hearts. The woman smiled weakly and reached out, touching Sarah's hair. "I don't know how long you will stay with me, but for now, you have given me something I thought I lost forever." The woman leaned back in her chair, sighing. "I only wish my daughter could see me now, not alone, not empty." Sarah slipped closer to her and laid her head on the woman's lap. The woman stroked her hair gently, her eyes fixed on the distant past. And so, in that golden room, 3 broken hearts sat together. 2 children finding hope, and 1 mother remembering loss, without knowing how close their stories truly were. The mansion was quiet that afternoon. The air smelled faintly of polish and roses from the garden outside. The woman had gone upstairs to rest, leaving the children in the care of silence. Upstairs, in her wide bedroom, the woman decided to check her jewelry box. It was not just ornaments to her. Each piece held a story. There was a pair of earrings she wore the day she opened her first company, a silver bracelet her daughter had admired once, and above all, a gold chain her daughter wore on her 16th birthday, the last gift they had exchanged before the fight that tore them apart. She opened the box with care, but when her eyes searched inside, her chest tightened. The gold chain was missing. Her hands shook. She checked again, pulling out every item spreading them on the bed. She lifted the box, turned it over, even opened drawers nearby. Nothing. The chain was gone. Her mind spun. Where could it be? She remembered the children. Daniel had gone into her room earlier to return a broom the maid had left behind. Her heart began to beat faster. The thought slipped in like a sharp blade. What if the boy took it? She didn't want to believe it, but the memory of how she first met him, stealing bread, flashed before her eyes. Her breathing grew heavy. Anger and disappointment surged. She marched downstairs. "Daniel," she called, her voice sharp. He jumped, dropping his pencil. "Yes, Ma?" She pointed at him, her face pale. "Did you enter my room?" "Yes, Ma," he said carefully, "only to keep the broom." Her eyes narrowed. "Did you open my jewelry box?" "No, Ma." "I didn't." Her voice rose. "Don't lie to me. My chain is missing. The chain my daughter wore. Where is it?" Daniel's face crumpled in shock. "I swear, I don't know." "I didn't take anything." Sarah clutched her doll tightly, looking between them in confusion. "Ma, Daniel didn't." "Enough," the woman snapped. "I welcomed you into my house. I fed you, clothed you, put you in school. And this is how you repay me? By stealing from me?" Daniel's eyes filled with tears. "Please, Ma, I would never—" But before he could finish, the woman's hand flew to her chest. A sharp pain spread across her arm. Her breathing turned shallow. "Ma!" Sarah cried, standing quickly. The woman staggered, clutching the wall. "My chest, it hurts." Her knees buckled, and she collapsed onto the marble floor. "Help!" Daniel shouted, panic flashing across his face. He ran to her side. "Ma, can you hear me?" Her eyes fluttered, unfocused. Daniel remembered the training video they once showed at school. His small hands shook, but he tilted her slightly to her side to help her breathe. "Sarah, run. Call someone, now." Sarah dashed to the hallway, banging on doors, screaming, "Help! She's falling! Help!" The maids and a guard rushed in. One grabbed a phone and called emergency services. Within minutes, the sound of sirens cut through the air. Paramedics stormed the mansion, bringing a stretcher and medical kits. Daniel stayed close, answering their questions. She shouted at me, then she fell. She was holding her chest. "Good boy," one paramedic said, nodding as they checked her pulse. "You helped keep her airway clear." That was smart. They lifted her carefully onto the stretcher, fastening oxygen to her face. Her body was weak, but her heart still fought. As they carried her out, Daniel grabbed her handbag and, without thinking, slipped the old photograph he kept hidden behind his bag into it. He didn't know why, only that it mattered. Inside the ambulance, the paramedics worked quickly. "We got here just in time," one said. "If not for that boy's quick action, it might have been worse." But Daniel sat quietly, fear heavy in his chest. He had not stolen. He had not lied. Yet somehow, she thought he had betrayed her. And when her eyes finally opened again, he knew he would have to face her anger once more before the truth could finally be revealed. The steady beep, beep, beep of the monitor filled the hospital room. Machines hummed softly, tubes ran to the patient's arm, and the faint smell of disinfectant clung to the air. On the bed lay the woman, her face pale against the white sheets. Daniel sat on a chair near the wall, his shoulders stiff, his eyes swollen from crying. Sarah sat curled beside him, holding her doll tightly. The children had not slept. Fear and guilt wrapped around them like chains. At last, the woman stirred. Her eyelids fluttered. She opened her eyes, confused for a moment, then winced as she adjusted to the light. A paramedic, still standing near the bed, smiled faintly. "You're awake," he said gently. "You're lucky. If not for this little boy, things could have been worse. He cleared your airway and called for help quickly. You should be proud of him." The woman's eyes moved slowly to Daniel. Her voice came out hoarse but sharp. That boy is the reason I'm here. He stole from me. He caused this." Daniel gasped. Sarah shook her head fiercely. "No, Ma, he didn't." Tears spilled down Daniel's cheeks. "I didn't steal your chain, Ma. I wasn't hiding it. I was hiding a picture." The room went still. The woman frowned. "A picture? What picture?" With trembling hands, Daniel pulled out the folded photograph from behind his small school bag. He held it carefully, as though it were gold. "It's the only thing we have of our mother," he whispered. "I keep it safe." The woman reached out weakly. Daniel placed the photo in her hand. She lifted it slowly, her eyes focusing on the image. The breath caught in her throat. Her lips parted. It was her daughter, young, smiling, standing in front of a small shop. The same daughter who had stormed out of her life at 20. The daughter she had searched for. The daughter she thought had erased her forever. Her hand shook as she clutched the picture to her chest. This is my child," she whispered. "This is my daughter." Daniel's eyes widened. Sarah leaned forward. "That's our mum," she said in a small voice. The woman's head snapped toward them. Your mum?" Daniel nodded quickly. "Yes, that's our mother. She is the one who left us. She drove us into the city. She said she couldn't take care of us anymore. She abandoned us there. We don't know where she went." His voice cracked. "We've been on the streets since then. We begged for food. I stole bread that day because Sarah was hungry." Sarah sniffled, wiping her nose. "Mummy left us. She didn't come back. But we have her picture. We didn't want to forget her face." The woman pressed the photo against her heart. Her whole body trembled. "So, you are her children?" Daniel's voice broke. "Yes, Ma." We are. Her eyes filled with tears. Real tears, not the kind she could hold back. She reached for Sarah first, pulling her close despite the wires and tubes. Then she stretched her arm to Daniel. "My grandchildren," she whispered, her voice shaking with disbelief and wonder. "All this time, right under my nose. God, you brought them back to me." Daniel leaned into her embrace, sobbing quietly. Sarah buried her face against the hospital gown. For the first time, the emptiness in the woman's heart cracked open, not with loss, but with love reborn. The nurse at the door wiped her eyes quietly. The paramedic stepped back, smiling faintly. In that hospital room, truth had found them. The woman held the children close, her voice breaking. "I thought I lost your mother forever. I thought I had no family left. But here you are, my blood, my hope, my joy," Daniel whispered through tears. "We didn't know you were our grandmother. And I didn't know you were my grandchildren," she said softly. "But from today, you will never be alone again." The mansion doors opened wide as the car returned from the hospital. For the first time in years, the woman, now a grandmother in truth, did not step into silence. Daniel and Sarah followed her closely, their small hands clutching hers. The house, once cold, felt alive again. At the dining table, extra plates were laid. In the corridors, small footsteps echoed. Laughter returned to halls that had forgotten the sound. That night, after dinner, the woman tucked Sarah into bed. She smoothed the little girl's hair and kissed her forehead. Daniel lingered at the door, watching. "Rest," the woman told him. "From now on, you will not sleep hungry. You will not beg on the streets. This house is your home." Daniel's throat tightened. He whispered, "Thank you, Grandma." Tears filled her eyes at the word. She pulled him into her arms. "Grandma," she repeated softly, "I thought I had lost everything. But God gave me another chance." Far away in a poor neighborhood, the children's mother dragged a basin of laundry to the roadside. Soap burned her hands, her back ached, and her stomach growled with hunger. She had been doing small, local jobs, washing clothes, sweeping yards, selling firewood. But no matter how much she worked, the money never lasted. She looked up at the sky and sighed. Where are my children? Did they survive, or did hunger take them? Her heart twisted with regret. Every night, she saw their faces in her dreams, Daniel's determined eyes, Sarah's sweet smile. She remembered the day she abandoned them, and the memory cut like a knife. Sometimes she told herself she had no choice. Other times, she admitted the truth. She was weak, and she had failed them. Sitting on a wooden stool, she whispered, "Maybe it's time to find them. Maybe it's time to make things right." But unknown to her, her children no longer slept on the street. They were in soft beds, in a mansion glowing with light, with a grandmother who had vowed never to let them go. Back at the mansion, the woman sat in her study late into the night. Daniel and Sarah were fast asleep, their bellies full and their hearts safe. She opened the old photograph once more and stared at her daughter's face. "You left me," she whispered to the picture, "and you left them. But I will not fail them. Never again." She placed the photograph carefully in a new frame and set it on her desk. The house was no longer empty. The emptiness in her chest was no longer endless. She had her grandchildren. Through pain, through chance, through the smallest act of theft, family had found its way back to her. Weeks later, Daniel and Sarah walked proudly in their new school uniforms, driven each morning in the grandmother's car. They no longer begged. They no longer feared the night. The mansion rang with their voices, their laughter, their dreams, and in the poorer part of town, their mother washed another basin of clothes, her heart heavy with regret, never knowing that the children she longed for were already safe, already loved, already home. And so, a desperate act of hunger led to a miracle of reunion. A grandmother who thought she had lost everything found her grandchildren. Two children who thought they had no one discovered family again. If you enjoyed this story, support our channel by subscribing, liking, and commenting. Don't forget to share this video so others can also learn from this powerful lesson about love, loss, and second chances.